Title: The Unseen Warrior. In a city where the skyline pierced the clouds and the streets were always bustling with the noise of ambition, Eliza stood at the edge of a world that felt unyielding and indifferent. A single mother, working 2 jobs, she often found herself crushed by the weight of society's expectations. The world told her she wasn't enough. Her income, her appearance, her choices. It was a never-ending barrage of judgments and obstacles, most of them invisible, yet deeply felt. Eliza worked as a receptionist during the day and a cashier at a diner at night. Her son, Lucas, was the light of her life, but even his laughter couldn't drown out the sting of her struggles. Every time she saw her colleagues' promotions or watched people with easier lives pass her by, the gnawing voice of self-doubt would whisper in her ear, "You're not doing enough. You'll never get ahead." One evening after a particularly grueling shift at the diner, Eliza found herself at the subway station, waiting for her train to take her home. A young woman, clearly well-dressed and well-off, stood next to her, texting on her phone. Their eyes met briefly before the woman turned away, her gaze filled with a mix of superiority and disinterest. Eliza looked down at her worn shoes and torn coat, the harsh winds of winter biting at her skin. Her exhaustion was palpable. As the train rumbled closer, Eliza felt a familiar sense of bitterness rise within her. Why was the world so unfair? Why did people like her, people who worked tirelessly to survive, get nothing? She had been told that hard work was all it took to rise, but her reality was far different. For years, she had fought against a tide of systemic injustice, invisible barriers, and overt prejudice. Yet here she was, just as tired and invisible as she had always been. Then something stirred inside her, a quiet strength, a spark of defiance. That night, she made a decision. She would no longer accept the world's rules as her own. She would fight not with fists, but with everything she had, her mind, her voice, and her heart. Over the next few months, Eliza began organizing small protests at her workplace, gathering her colleagues to speak out against the unjust treatment of the staff. She started volunteering at local shelters, offering legal advice to women who had faced abuse or discrimination. Her voice, once silenced by exhaustion and fear, began to resonate with others who had felt the same weight of inequality. But the fight wasn't easy. She faced constant resistance. The media painted her as an angry, overzealous woman, too emotional to be taken seriously. Her co-workers told her she was wasting her time, that nothing would ever change. But every small victory fueled her resolve. A colleague finally spoke up about a manager's harassment. A woman in the shelter got her case heard by the right attorney. Each step forward, no matter how small, felt like a win against the forces that had long suppressed them. One day she received a call from a lawyer. Her fight, which had started as a single whisper of defiance, had become something larger. A lawsuit against the systemic injustices at her workplace. The case quickly garnered attention, with people from all walks of life standing behind her, supporting her fight. And though the road was long and fraught with legal battles, Eliza felt stronger than ever before. Years passed, and though the fight was far from over, Eliza had become a symbol, a woman who refused to let the world's unfairness define her. The city had changed in small, significant ways. The company where she had once worked now had policies that supported equal pay and representation. Her son, now a young man, looked at her with admiration, understanding that real courage wasn't in winning the battle. It was in continuing to fight, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Eliza didn't set out to change the world. She only wanted to make sure she wasn't crushed by it. But in doing so, she became the change she had been seeking. A warrior not of force, but of resilience.